Imagine boarding a flight from London to New York in the late 20th century. You step into a cabin that feels intimate, elegant, and different from anything else in the sky. The seats are narrow but finished in fine leather, champagne glasses sparkle on the tray tables, and there is a quiet hum of excitement in the air. The flight attendants move gracefully, offering canapés as passengers settle in. And then, almost before you realize it, the wheels leave the runway, afterburners blazing, and the aircraft surges into the clouds. Within minutes, you feel the subtle jolt as the jet passes through the sound barrier, climbing higher and higher until the sky outside the window darkens to indigo and the curvature of the Earth appears faintly on the horizon. Just 3.5 hours later, you are already descending into New York, a journey that normally takes over 7 hours cut in half. It sounds like science fiction, but it was very real. This was Concorde, the first and only supersonic passenger airliner to fly in regular commercial service, and one of the most ambitious aircraft ever built. Concorde was never just an airplane. It was a cultural icon, a symbol of national pride, and a demonstration of how far human engineering could push against the limits of physics. It promised to collapse distances, to bring continents closer, and to make speed itself a luxury. And yet, despite its brilliance, it vanished from our skies. Supersonic passenger travel, for all its promise, faded into nostalgia. The dream of routine supersonic journeys was put aside, leaving behind both awe and regret. To understand why, we need to go back to the beginning, to a time when aviation itself was reinventing the world. In the years after the Second World War, aviation advanced at a breathtaking pace. Propeller-driven transports like the Douglas DC-3 gave way to jets, and with them came a new era of speed and altitude. The Boeing 707, introduced in the late 1950s, was the aircraft that truly launched the jet age, allowing passengers to cross oceans in half the time of piston-powered planes. The Douglas DC-8 joined it, followed soon by the Boeing 720 and then the mighty Boeing 747, an aircraft designed to carry the masses on long-range routes at affordable prices. The skies opened up to ordinary travelers, and flying transformed from a luxury for the few into a global network of connections. But while these subsonic jets conquered the skies, engineers and dreamers were already looking further ahead. If military aircraft like the English Electric Lightning, the Soviet MiG-21, or the American Lockheed F-104 starfighter could fly faster than sound, then why not design a passenger jet that could do the same? The idea of supersonic transport, known simply as SST, captured imaginations worldwide. Faster than sound, faster than the dawn itself, a passenger could eat breakfast in London, lunch in New York, and dinner in Los Angeles. Governments saw it as both a technological challenge and a matter of national prestige. By the late 1950s, Britain and France both recognized they were chasing the same dream. Each nation had talented aerospace industries, but the cost of designing such a revolutionary aircraft would be astronomical. No single country in Europe could bear the financial burden alone. In 1962, Britain and France signed a treaty, agreeing to share the costs and expertise, to collaborate on the design, and to build the world's first supersonic passenger aircraft together. It was more than just a business deal. It was a political act of European unity, long before the European Union had taken shape. And in keeping with the spirit of cooperation, the name they chose meant the same in both languages. In English, it meant agreement. In French, it meant harmony. The aircraft would be called Concorde. Designing an aircraft that could carry paying passengers at twice the speed of sound was unlike anything attempted before. The challenges were immense. Supersonic flight exposed the airframe to extraordinary aerodynamic forces, structural heating, and fuel consumption levels that were completely beyond anything seen in subsonic aviation. Engineers had to invent solutions where none existed. The aircraft's shape reflected its mission. Concorde was long and slender, her fuselage resembling a needle to reduce drag at high speed. Her wings were not the conventional swept design seen on subsonic airliners, but a pure delta wing, a triangular planform that could generate lift at supersonic speeds while remaining stable at low speeds during takeoff and landing. This delta wing also gave Concorde her elegant bird-like silhouette. The nose was sharply pointed, but to allow pilots visibility on approach and taxiing, it was designed to droop downward mechanically, a distinctive feature that became one of her trademarks. At her heart were 4 Rolls-Royce Snecma Olympus 593 turbojet engines. These engines were adapted from military bombers and were capable of astonishing thrust. To accelerate through the sound barrier, they used afterburners, injecting fuel into the exhaust to create a fiery plume of extra thrust, which passengers could feel as a surge pushing them back into their seats. Once through Mach 1, the engines throttled back, and Concorde settled into her cruise at Mach 2, twice the speed of sound, around 1,350 miles per hour. At that speed, the aircraft generated so much aerodynamic heating that her skin temperature could exceed 120 degrees Celsius. The aluminum fuselage expanded by nearly 8 inches in flight, which is why gaps appeared in the cabin interior that would close again once the aircraft cooled after landing. Concorde flew at altitudes above 60,000 feet, nearly twice the height of conventional jets. At that height, the sky outside the tiny windows appeared a deep violet, and passengers could glimpse the curvature of the Earth. The view alone was otherworldly, like peering out of a spacecraft. Every element of the aircraft had to be advanced. The windows were small, not for aesthetics, but because larger ones would not withstand the pressure differential at such altitudes. The landing gear had to be unusually tall and strong to hold the long nose high enough during takeoff rotation. The fuel system was equally complex. Concorde carried over 200 tons of fuel, distributed among 13 tanks. During flight, the fuel was pumped from one tank to another to maintain the correct center of gravity, essential for stability at supersonic speed. Even the air intakes for the engines were a masterpiece of engineering. They used variable ramps controlled by digital systems to slow the supersonic airflow to subsonic speeds before it entered the engines, which could not handle supersonic air directly. Without this system, the engines would have surged and flamed out. On the 2nd of March, 1969, Concorde took to the skies for the first time from Toulouse, France. It was a short flight, but the sight of this gleaming, futuristic machine lifting gracefully into the air captured global attention. Later, during test flights, she broke the sound barrier and cruised effortlessly at Mach 2. Pilots described the aircraft as beautifully responsive, almost like flying a fighter jet, but with the refinement expected of a passenger plane. In 1976, Concorde entered commercial service. Air France and British Airways, the national carriers of France and Britain, launched routes from Paris and London to New York and Washington. Flying Concorde was unlike any other experience in aviation. It was not just transportation, it was theater, it was prestige, it was membership in an exclusive club. The passenger list often read like a society column. Celebrities, musicians, actors, politicians, royalty, and business magnates filled the seats. Princess Diana, Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, and countless others were regulars. In one famous case, musician Phil Collins used Concorde to perform in both London and Philadelphia on the same day during the Live Aid concerts of 1985. The atmosphere on board was elegant. Champagne flowed freely, caviar was served on fine china, and the service was attentive and polished. But the real luxury was speed. The flight lasted barely over 3 hours. A traveler could leave London at 10 in the morning, arrive in New York before breakfast was even over by local time, and be home the same evening. For business executives, this was a tool of power. For celebrities, it was a status symbol. For aviation enthusiasts, it was a glimpse of the future. Yet beneath the glamour and excitement, serious problems lurked. Concorde was breathtakingly expensive to operate. Her Olympus engines devoured fuel at an astonishing rate, far more per passenger than any subsonic jet. With only 100 seats on board, the cost had to be spread across fewer passengers, making tickets extremely expensive. A round trip across the Atlantic could cost more than $10,000 in today's money. Initially, many airlines around the world expressed interest. Pan Am, TWA, Lufthansa, Qantas, Singapore Airlines, and others placed tentative orders. But as the true costs became clear, orders evaporated. Environmental concerns also emerged. Concorde's thunderous takeoffs drew noise complaints from residents near airports like London Heathrow and Paris Charles de Gaulle. The sonic boom created by breaking the sound barrier made overland flights politically impossible. Entire communities shook as the boom rolled over, shattering the idea of flying supersonic across continents. Governments banned supersonic overland travel, confining Concorde to routes over oceans, particularly the North Atlantic. In total, just 20 aircraft were built, including prototypes and test vehicles. Only 14 were ever used for scheduled passenger service. By comparison, Boeing built more than 1,000 Boeing 747s. The scale simply did not compare. While Boeing and later Airbus perfected the economics of subsonic travel with fuel-efficient wide-body aircraft, Concorde remained a boutique operation, dazzling but unsustainable. Still, Concorde survived into the 1990s largely on prestige. British Airways in particular discovered that passengers would pay almost anything for the speed and glamour. They marketed Concorde as the ultimate luxury travel experience and often operated at a profit despite the small numbers. But the aircraft was aging. The technology, advanced in the 1960s, was increasingly expensive to maintain. Each Concorde required meticulous care, and the fleet was tiny, meaning no economies of scale could reduce the costs. Then came July 25, 2000. Air France Flight 4590 prepared for takeoff from Paris, Charles de Gaulle bound for New York. As the aircraft accelerated down the runway, it struck a piece of debris dropped moments earlier by another aircraft. The debris shredded a tire, and fragments punctured the underside of the wing, rupturing a fuel tank. Flames erupted, one engine lost thrust, and the aircraft struggled to climb. Within minutes, it crashed into a hotel near the runway, killing all 113 people on board and on the ground. It was Concorde's only fatal accident, but it was devastating. The investigation led to safety modifications, including Kevlar linings in the fuel tanks and reinforced tires. Concorde returned to service in 2001, but the timing was cruel. Just months later, the September 11th attacks struck the world, plunging aviation into crisis. Passenger numbers collapsed, insurance costs soared, and airlines slashed routes. For Concorde, with her tiny fleet and enormous maintenance costs, the economics no longer worked. In 2003, both Air France and British Airways announced the retirement of Concorde. On October 24th of that year, the last commercial flight touched down in London, greeted by crowds who came to witness the end of an era. People wept, pilots saluted. The sleek white bird that had once symbolized the future of flight was grounded forever. Concorde's retirement was not a result of failed engineering. The aircraft worked brilliantly. She was safe, She was fast. She was adored by her passengers. Her fall came instead from forces beyond technology, the economics of operating such a fuel-hungry jet, the politics of sonic boom restrictions, the environmental concerns about emissions and noise, the lack of scale with only 14 in service, and the cruel timing of tragedy and terrorism. And yet, Concorde's legacy endures. She proved that supersonic passenger flight was not only possible, but could be sustained for decades. She showed that engineering ambition could produce something not just functional, but beautiful. Aviation enthusiasts still call her the White Bird, and her silhouette remains instantly recognizable. Today, new projects are once again exploring supersonic travel. Startups like Boom Supersonic are working on aircraft like Overture, designed to carry passengers at Mach 1.7 with quieter booms and more efficient engines. NASA has invested in the X-59 quiet supersonic transport, which aims to demonstrate that supersonic flight can be made acceptable over land by softening the sonic boom into a mere thump. Sustainable aviation fuels, lighter materials like carbon composites, and advanced aerodynamics may one day solve the problems Concorde could not. But the questions remain. Can supersonic travel ever be economical? Can it ever be environmentally sustainable? Will airlines embrace it in a world where subsonic jets like the Boeing 787 Dreamliner offer efficiency, comfort, and luxury at far lower costs? Concorde was, in many ways, a paradox. She was a masterpiece of engineering, yet commercially flawed. She was a glimpse of the future, yet confined to the past. She embodied elegance, ambition, and the belief that the future could be faster, higher, and more glamorous. When she retired, it was more than just an aircraft leaving service. It was a dream deferred. But the dream has not vanished. Every time an engineer sketches a supersonic design, every time a passenger remembers that short 3-hour hop across the Atlantic, every time we look up at the preserved Concordes resting in museums around the world, we are reminded of what was once possible. Concorde was not a failure. She was a promise that one day humanity might again leap across oceans at twice the speed of sound. And when that day comes, we will remember that the White Bird showed us the way,